To a Manchester resident broadcaster, Terry Christian. How are you, Terry?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Good. How does life on Tier 2 feel right now, by the way?
Well, it's just been the same grind, really, since late July. And as you say, it's kind of, it doesn't seem to make any sense whatsoever. This idea of moving to Tier 3, either lock down completely, release all the stats and lock down completely. And do a circuit breaker.
Is it? But isn't there?
To Tier 3 is neither one thing or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I think a lot of people do as well. But it isn't the theory that rather than locking down everything, to try and kind of find a halfway measure between the two.
Yeah, but there's no evidence that it works. I mean, what's the point of shutting a pub, but you can still keep a pub that serves food open? Now, because there's food available, does that mean that there's going to be, less coronavirus in the air? I don't think so. And the reality is, this idea of the kind of, giving people, if you have to furlough them, 67% of the wages. I mean, gosh, so 2/3 wages for people on minimum wage? That's what, about £5.80 each, is it, an hour? Now, what I would like to know is, will they be able to go to the mortgage company and say, look, can you just take 2/3 of a payment?
Yeah.
Go to the landlord and say, will you take 2/3 of the rent? And supermarkets, you do your shop and say, look, you just take 2/3 of that. I mean, really, why aren't they giving Manchester the money that they're asking for?
Do you sense then, I mean, there's been a lot of talk, Terry, that this is, a kind of a new north-south divide. I mean, you've even got Tory MPs in your neck of the woods arguing against their own government on this one. What do you think's behind it then?
I think the reality is we just know that Boris Johnson and this Tory government, his whole cabinet, are completely and utterly inept and corrupt. Let's be quite honest about it.
Why is it corrupt, though? Why is it corrupt?
Well, they spent $12 billion, haven't they, on this track and trace system that doesn't work. Now, the NHS, the real NHS, not Serco, not the private companies that they're giving our taxpayers money to, the NHS have great track and trace systems already in operation. That's how they track you if you've got AIDS or chlamydia or some other STD. They do it all the time. These are professionals. Why not just fund them to do it? And then you've got to do it at a local level. The NHS don't do that kind of track and trace on a national level. They run it locally. Now, why aren't the government doing that? They're too busy giving our money to their friends.
But did they really sit there in a...
What Andy Burnham should do is rebrand Manchester as a private management consultancy company. And then
they throw the money at him.
They'll give him billions as long as he
you can
donates
see
50,000
Rishi up the M6 with a wheelbarrow of cash. Maybe that would happen. But, I mean, seriously, Terry, do you think they sat there around the cabinet table and said, look, we've got a load of money, we could give it directly to the cause, but I know a fellow that works at Serco, I think he'd appreciate a few quid. I mean, that's kind of David Icke territory, isn't it?
They've always been short-termist. That is what the Tory party are, the short-termism. Everything's about making a quick buck. That's why we have no real manufacturing industry. That's why we don't have a decent, any decent kind of infrastructure. I mean, this is what they do. I mean,
you sound like we're living in Dickensian Britain, Terry. Come on, you did all right under the Tories, Terry. Come on, the word was on the air when Thatcher was in power.
I got my job because of Thatcher being in power.
There you go.
In 1981 on the radio. And do you know why I got that?
Because you're a Tory.
Because a load of people rioted in the summer of 1981 and threw stones and set fires to shops. So they have to try and do something, bring in a token working class voice, do something like that. But the reality is you tell me, ask any of your listeners now to let you know, when did Boris Johnson ever do anything that wasn't inept or a lie or cost lots of public money and actually have some decent results?
But you know what, we could apply that to any government, couldn't we?
The Boris Island and the Boris bikes.
Well, the Boris bike's one of the most successful bike schemes on the planet.
But they weren't Boris bikes, they were Ken Livingstone bikes, weren't they?
Yeah, but he was the beneficiary of it. I mean, that's not his fault. He won an election.
He just labelled it Boris. So why don't we just become Boris Land? I mean, look, we're spending $200 billion on the disaster of Brexit, which is round the corner, and yet he's offered Manchester $22 million. Right, Manchester has got a population of 2 million. He's offered the mayor, Andy Burnham, 22 million quid. He gave 44 million to Lancashire, which is Tory, and has only got a population of 1.5 million.
But he gave Liverpool more money. That's not Tory.
Yeah, and then if you go look
but
at
that's
Nottingham,
not Tory, is it? So your argument falls down, Terry.
Their COVID rates in Nottingham are higher than Manchester's. Why aren't they sending Nottingham into Tier 3?
Just while you're on with us, you mentioned Brexit there, and I take it you're not enamoured with Brexit.
Well, it's just the biggest con job.
Well, what do you say to you're a working class lad like myself? What do you say to fellow Mancunians who voted with their feet and said this is our decision?
Well, they didn't. Manchester actually voted Remain, didn't
No,
they?
I'm talking about people in Manchester who didn't. People who voted to.
I mean, I've met them all in the pubs, and I'm sorry, you know.
Are they all dodgepots? Are they all weirdos?
They just haven't got a clue. They don't even know what the EU is.
Is this because you've moved out your working class bubble into the kind of more middle class media intelligentsia?
My friends are working class, and none of them voted Brexit. I mean, that could be because we're Irish descent, so luckily we've got our life raft for Brexit. But it was just always going to be a big con. None of the problems that anybody sees around them are caused by the EU. Even the EU migrant workers, using Article 7 that already exists in EU law, we could have stopped 80% of them coming here anyway. The Tories have been in power for 10 years. Why didn't they do that? They could have stopped all the non-EU immigrants coming in. You know,
well, I think the truth is the Tories didn't want to do that. That's probably why.
No,
I mean, there's
saying
two types of Tory here. Right? There's David Cameron Tory and there's Boris Johnson Tory.
For Brexit, I've been asking the same question, and everybody has for the last 4 years, what are the tangible benefits going to be? And what you get is these lies. It's just 3-word slogans that people can shout. They haven't got a clue what they voted for. What they voted for is to lose their jobs and be poorer. And then you've got people like Richard Tice with his property empire. He's panicking over COVID because nobody's going into the office anymore. So all his office properties aren't making the money. All these guys want to do is turn us into a tax-free haven.
Maybe people just voted for autonomy and to not be part of a big union. There's, Tony Benn, Dennis Skinner, people that would also have voted to have left the EU.
Tony Benn, in the era that he argued about not being in the EU, he wasn't arguing for a no deal. He was arguing about us being a bit more like Norway. And at that time, it was a stronger argument because we still owned our own manufacturing industry.
Well, Kate Hoey, Ronnie Campbell, Dennis Skinner, these are all left-wingers. These are all Labour. Come on, Terry, this is not...
Again, Dennis Skinner... They're stuck in the 1970s. It's interesting that Tony Benn was anti-EU, but his son Hillary, because things changed, circumstances changed. Since Thatcher turned us into a service industries country with no real manufacturing, I mean, what we are is a foreign-owned production line. Nothing that we make is owned by us. And so all those car companies, they're all going to go, aren't they, with no deal? Jaguar Land Rover, Nissan... Toyota.
We don't know all of that, do we? We don't know all of that.
Take Nissan. Oh, well, we do know that. The Japanese have already said it. No single market, no customs union. We're gone.
They didn't
Honda's
say that.
Already gone.
They didn't say that.
Toyota in Derby will go.
We're still making cars. We will still continue to make cars. Terry, I have to butt in for no other reason. Love the passion. Terry Christian, broadcaster, Manchester resident, annoyed about a couple of things there. Common denominator, the Tories.